Hello everyone, welcome to Ramo with Topper Show. Today in this episode, we have Ashish, who secured All India Rank 2 in SSC CGL 2017 exam and opted for Inspector of Income Tax. Ashish got All India Rank in 2017 exam, but before that, he had multiple failures also in many exams actually. So we would definitely like to know what kept Ashish motivated so that he finally managed to get such a high rank. Before clearing SSC CGL 2017, Ashish also cleared SSC CGL 2016 and he got appointed as TA in CBDT income tax, right? So we will also like to know that how he kept his momentum going, and from a rank which was not so good in 2016 exam, he managed to get a very good rank. I would say second rank is something which is dream for everyone actually. So let us find out with Ashish how he prepared, what books he followed, and everything, his entire journey in this show. So I expect everyone to watch till the end so that you learn a lot. Ashish, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Ashish's first reaction when you got All India Rank 2, because you have very high marks, right? And knowing the marks, somewhere you get a sense that I can end up in being top 10. But did you knew that you're going to get rank 2?
I shouldn't say I didn't expect it because we had a lot of exposure to all our friends because of the CGL 2017 Supreme Court case. Most of us knew each other even before the results came out. So I had a fair idea that I would come in top 5, and to be honest, I thought I would be ending up as a rank 2.
Okay, that's wonderful.
That's not something which you normally expect in most of the other exams, because we don't know who all have written this exam, how good they have done it. But due to the circumstances covering 2017 CGL, we had a lot of there was a relationship between the peers, I should say.
Yeah, right. So when you saw the result, Ashish, and found you are finally ranked 2, was it sigh of relief or somewhere excitement and you jumped on the bed?
There wasn't much of excitement, to be honest, because the results were quite late. That was a bit of the real emotion was relief, no doubt of that.
Right. So Ashish, I'll now take you to the journey, in previous part of the life. So when did you started appearing for competitive exams? Because from your profile, I got to know that you have done engineering from NIT Calicut, right? So
yes,
after NIT Calicut, what did you opt for a placement and you went for a job? How did this preparation phase started?
I would say I fared poorly in my academics in NIT Calicut, and as a result, I wanted to change the field altogether. Like the first thing which came to my mind, and to most of peers who didn't do well in the academics, was to change to a managerial career. So I wanted to go for an MBA. I started preparing in the late 2014, year 2014. By the time I wrote the exams, the thing is, I was in a very negative mind. The mindset definitely affects your preparation. And the fact is, I didn't prepare much. The preparation was very poor as well. So this went on for the next 1 or 2 years. I kept on appearing in exams, but without much of a preparation. So that is when I had we could say it was destiny. Like I had a job offer from a company in my hometown. It was like an apprenticeship, and I had a year's contract with them. And during that time, my priorities actually changed. It's like you only know what things suit you when you try it once. So when I tried that, I understood that a job in my hometown or somewhere near my hometown that was my comfort zone. Like this would definitely boost my morale. It will make me much more comfortable with my surroundings. So I thought I would prepare for some of the government exams, which would give me a chance to stay in Kerala. And SSC CGL was one of those options.
Right. So Ashish, my first question is that you're talking about that you got how did you get to know about this SSC CGL exam? Because if we see the participation of the student from southern states, right, that is much lesser, right? So even
Yes.
thinking about being a graduate in engineering, that too from a really really good college, right? How did
Mhm.
you become more aware about such exam, and that okay, this is the profile you are actually looking for, but not many people in your state is actually looking for this exam.
The truth is, I had to write a lot of exams. So
Hmm.
it's not just SSC CGL, it's not just bank exams, it's not just insurance exams. I was writing all of it. All the
Hmm.
exams, I will be there. I'll be there in the prelims. I might be getting out in the prelims, or I might be going to the mains. Then I'll be writing that. I would have written around 30 exams in the year 2015. I'm not sure about the
Okay.
count, but it's somewhere in that ballpark.
Hmm.
So this is how I met. I know, introduced myself to SSC CGL. And I don't think that any of my friends, I had a friend who had written SSC CGL before that, but I wasn't actually aware of that, aware of the exam at that time. So this was just one exam which my father found out actually. Like, he was working in a
Okay.
college, and there was a team who had gone to his college to introduce about this exam, and it was him who actually uh, you know told me about this exam and asked me to register for it. That was
Hmm.
about CGL 2016.
Hmm. Hmm.
So at that time, I was working in that company, in Malayalam Manorama company, and during that time, I wrote Tier 1 and Tier 2. Actually, Tier 2 was on the last day of my contract. So
Hmm.
once Tier 2 was done, my apprenticeship with the company was also done with. So I had enough time to prepare for Tier 3, which was like 4 months away. So I joined a coaching, and that took it to a whole new level.
Right. So, Ashish, what I want to ask right now, that as you told me that you started writing for many exams, and in 2015 you wrote around 30 exams, right? I want to know that in how many exams actually you went till the final list out of the 30
None
exam
of
that you gave.
none of them.
None.
None of them.
None of them, right? So,
None of them.
Ashish, in such phases, actually, a person starts thinking or starts doubting his own caliber because even if you were good in studies, you got a good college, you did engineering from there. But when you see multiple failures happening, when you're giving an exam, all India test, you are not cleared, you're not cleared, you're not cleared. So, did it somewhere break your confidence, or you were
It
thinking, I don't know why it is happening?
No, the thing is, I was not very sure of myself when I passed out of my college. I wouldn't say I was very confident that I would get into a good MBA course like some IIM, or I would be clearing some good exam. But the thing is, I hadn't lost all of my confidence. Once you lose that, it's very difficult to come back from that. It's
Mhm.
almost like you have to, dig yourself out of your own hole. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of motivation. It takes a lot of commitment as well. So I wasn't at that point, but I would say I was near somewhere there. Like, uh, the thing is, I had a good company. Like, my family wasn't pressuring me to get into a job as much as other people would do it. Yes, definitely there was some pressure, but there wasn't the pressure wouldn't catapult me into some depression. That if that's what you're talking about. And the other thing is, I had a good number of friends in similar situations. Having
Mhm.
good background academics but not succeeding in life. I had a good company of them, and we would motivate us ourselves between us, and
Mhm.
that helped a lot. And there were some people who actually appreciated my talent, my skill, my skill set. I had a few good teachers, I had a few good mentors who kept me motivated. That is the truth.
When did you become serious about this exam, sincere about this exam? No, this is something which is having a really good profile. I should actually target this exam 100% than looking for all other exams.
The thing is, that turnaround was actually in 2017 beginning, probably by February.
Hmm.
I had gone for the coaching classes for 2016 CGL Tier 3. It
Hmm.
was actually around that period that I thought, because the thing is, I had zero preparation going into Tier 1 and Tier 2. And
Hmm.
I ended up with something around 9,500 or 10,000 rank out of around 10 to 12 lakh people. So I thought I'll go for the exam the next season as well, because I found out that the coaching center which I had gone to was actually a good one, because most of the faculties were actually familiar to me, because they were familiar in my earlier phases of life, like CAT coaching, other phases of life. Then the mentors and the directors of the institute were quite forthcoming. They were very motivating. They were very uh, they appreciated me for the work I had put in during the early months of 2017 preparation. So that actually motivated me a lot, and I had just 4 months till 2017 Tier 1. So I had to make a quick decision. And I thought soon after the exam was done with, soon after the Tier 3 of 2016 CGL was done with, I enrolled in the full-time coaching, and I, started my journey from there.
Right. So what I understand from this discussion is, Ashish, that 2016 exam was more of trying out the exam without any sincere effort.
Yes.
But once you were preparing for Tier 3, you decided that, okay, this is the exam where you can actually make it big, right? And that's how you started in a full flow in 2017 January, right? Right. So Ashish, what if I ask you subject by subject, right? That what books you used, how you prepared. That you already told us that you joined the coaching, right? So subject wise, if I ask you that what specifically you did for general awareness section, right? Let us know about that. What books you used, right? What was your preparation strategy? Because GA sections is for engineers is definitely a tough nut to crack, right? Something, they are more used to physics, chemistry and maths than any GA subject, right? So how did you plan for that? What was your material that you used, revision strategy, everything in general awareness?
Okay, in general awareness, one thing which you probably got wrong is that engineers don't have a disadvantage. The only thing is they might not be aware of the normal things, the current affairs, or the history, the geography, and all the other sorts of knowledge. But till CGL 2017, science played a big role in general awareness. Science broad, when you speak specifically, you'll go for physics, chemistry, bio. So I wouldn't say bio is a stronghold for any of the engineers, but physics, chemistry, at least those 4 or 5 questions, you don't have to, learn a lot. That was one of my strongholds. Like physics and chemistry were definitely my strongholds, and I saved a lot of time because I just had to brush up all those topics. Because these are physics and chemistry, you can, understand the topics. It's not, you don't have to mug up a lot. There's probably a lot of logic into it. So you have you can brush up the topics and then you'll be done with it. And for biology, there's a lot of mugging up involved. Then for that subjects as well, like the social sciences, history, geography, then polity, then economics. Everything has a lot of mugging up involved. But yeah, if you put your mind to it, it's not that difficult for any engineer or any for a person from any background as per se. I wouldn't, I can't comment on the fact that it's easier for engineering or non-engineering graduates. It definitely depends on the person. Then what you have to have is a bit of memory capacity and a bit of grasping capacity. That's it. Nothing else actually matters. And the fact is, I had only very less time for preparation for GA. Like 4 months, I had started preparing for CGL 2017 from the month of April, and the exams were in August. So I had 4 months. So for that, I had to prioritize. That's the truth. So what I had to do is, I couldn't go into depth in any of the subjects. I had to cover all the subjects broadly. I had to go through all the subjects on the surface, and I had to be content with it. But the thing is, how to go at breadth with all the subjects, that's something you get once you go through the previous year question papers. So that's what I did first. I actually had a good number of friends who suggested good books for that. Kiran Prakashan's compilation of GK questions. That is what we actually practice in our coaching center. So we would be religiously going through the topics. We'll be dividing the topics every day. We'll be dividing the top portions into like 3 or 4 topics, and we will be taking up 3 or 4 topics like in an order, and we will be keeping track of the questions which we have already done and the point up to which we have completed. So we will be continuing from that point, and we will be first, first having a revision of the previous day's topics, and then we'll go to the next day's topic. So this will be the way we will be consolidating the data we have already studied, and then we will go moving on to the new portions. So this way we almost covered the whole thing, the whole book. That's almost like more than 10,000 questions that could have been covered in 3 months, I guess. So by that time, there was a lot of clarity in what was being asked, and in parallel, what we did is like when we are doing questions from previous year papers, we'll be getting an understanding where we lack actually. That is one of the positives. So if you're lacking in economics, you can't expect to learn economics just by practicing previous year question papers, because economics has a lot of theories. It has a lot of logic involved as well. So you have to understand the topic a bit. So first we have to do a bit of homework for that, and there will be specific teachers, professors for this in our institute, and they will be handling those portions, and we'll be making sure that we don't miss those classes. We'll just go to the portions. We'll be learning the logic involved in it. Then we will go to the next topic. Like once economics is done with, we'll move on to the next topic. So this way we will be having a roundabout discussion about all the topics, and the books which I follow is pretty simple. Like most of the people will definitely follow it, Loose and GK. Okay. And the fact is, it's very difficult to learn Loose and GK in a short span of time. So I just marked out a few things in around 40 or 50 pages. The Loose and the whole thing is probably around 600 pages or 700 pages. So I would have marked out only the specific portions which I lacked in, which I was poor in. So I would have marked them, and I just revised them once in a while.
Right. And Ashish, what about reasoning? Because it has been seen that basically people coming from the maths background, right, usually give very less importance to SSC reasoning. So did you do any specific preparation for this reasoning section, or you relied on previous year and mocks? What was your strategy?
I didn't do much homework on reasoning actually, because the thing is, reasoning was quite simple. When you come from a CAT background or bank PO background, reasoning questions tend to be much simpler for you because of the level of questions you would have faced in the previous exams. So the thing is, the previous year question paper analysis and practice is pretty good enough, is pretty much enough for getting a good score in reasoning section. Only thing is that you might have to forgo of a few questions. Like in my exam, there was one question which troubled me, and I couldn't find the answer to it in the exam time. It was like a single letter was jumping from one position to the next position, the next word. Like there were 6 words. In the first word, the letter would be E, and the second word, the second letter would be E, and third word, the third letter would be E, and we were asked to find the 4th or 5th word. So I couldn't find the exact pattern. So such kind of questions could be there in any exam. So if you are fine with, if you're fine with getting a good score, and you don't mind if it's not 50, then you don't have to go through a lot of practice in reasoning. That's what I thought. But in some of the exams, in some of the shifts, the exams was actually very difficult in reasoning. So if you get one of those shifts, in hindsight, you would think that I should have practiced more of reasoning. But in my case, it happened.
Right. And Ashish, coming to the subjects which you told me that you were already you were not worried about those subjects, maths and English. So these subjects occupy the most weightage in the exam. They are there in prelims, they are there in mains. So how did you specifically prepare for maths to ensure that you don't lack anywhere in your strength areas? Because there is a risk. Okay, this is my strength area. I should not lose here at least. So what was the specific preparation strategy for, let's talk about English first, then we'll talk about maths.
Okay. The thing is, English wouldn't pose much of a trouble for a person who is from, a good academic background. Because in SSC, the English level is not that big, not that huge. The level is something which is easily manageable. The only thing is you have to have a lot of practice, and that practice will take you to the real scores which you should get. Because in 2016 CGL, my score was 150 for English.
In English.
Yeah, the paper was actually not that easy. The truth is, the paper was quite difficult actually that time. But my score in 2017 CGL was 190. So the jump of 40 marks in that single paper is actually due to the practice which I put in. So the thing is, you have to learn what you have to put the effort where the effort is actually asked for. So you have to learn a lot of words. The vocabulary would be one thing which a new aspirant would never be accustomed to. A person who have had any practice of this exam will definitely falter where vocabulary is concerned. And second thing is, there will be a lot of grammatical rules, grammar rules, which will need a lot of practice and which will need a bit of new knowledge as well. Because even if you are used to a lot of English and a lot of conversations in English, you'll probably have no idea about some of the rules which which actually matters in this exam. So during this time, actually, some of the teachers, two of my very close mentors in the institute were actually professors of English. So it's like they used to pose some challenges for us. They would be giving some easy questions, and the fact is we would be easily getting them wrong. Even if we are from good backgrounds, even if we have good academies, we'll be easily getting them wrong because we wouldn't know the exact context of that grammar, because we would not have been familiar with that. So this was something which I found quite interesting, because the thing is, some of the quotes we would be seeing in the films, in the series, English series as well, but we would not know how that is used in a normal context. So if someone poses that question to you and you find it difficult, it becomes a challenge actually, because you have to learn a lot of grammar rules which are behind it. So that is one thing. The learning of the grammar was one thing, then the vocabulary, then the practice, then that's what actually matters, because cramming a lot of words and a lot of grammar rules won't help you unless you have a lot of practice in this exam. So attempting 200 questions in a time frame of 2 hours, it's not at all easy. You should have a lot of practice in comprehension, for example. That's somewhere you may waste a lot of time. Then in para jumbles, that's somewhere you would probably waste a lot of time. So these sections particularly need a lot of practice, which we will actually get if you do a lot of previous year questions. That's enough actually. And once you do a lot of mock exams from many of the main players in this industry, in the SSC industry, it will be pretty much enough to boost your scores into 180s and 190s.
Great. So Ashish, if I ask you, any new aspirant who is out there for SSC preparation, right? What should be his approach to proceed with grammar section, vocabulary section, right? For practice, you suggested that he should go with the previous year questions, right?
Yes.
But when he is starting his preparation, right, he must be thinking that what should I read first? Okay, as a theory part, like in grammar, I have to learn rules. What book shall I follow? I mean, I'm talking about overall strategy according to you for any new aspirant who is out there now.
I'm not sure if I can be of good help in that section, because the fact is, I have already told you my English background. My father is an English professor. He has trained me a lot in that language as well. And once you speak about people who have learned in other mediums like Hindi medium or in other languages, it becomes a bit of a trouble, to inculcate that culture of that English learning in oneself. But the fact is, first you have to know that English is the most important thing in CGL. Other than maths, you have to have a bit of love for English. Otherwise, the thing is, you would be very comfortable with Hindi, because I know a lot of people, a lot of aspirants who came to me with doubts, but everyone was coming to me with doubts in Hindi. in spite of me telling them repeatedly to ask me stuff in English, they would be they would be sending me questions in Hindi. So the thing is,
Mm,
they do not want, no, this is actually something which happens subconsciously. It's not something you do voluntarily. So when you are very comfortable with your mother tongue, you won't actually go to English for your normal chats. But
mm,
if you want to put in a bit of effort, if you want, to familiarize yourself with the words, with the usage of words, what you have to do is you have to, include that in your day-to-day communication.
communication, exactly.
So this is one easy opportunity for them. Like when you're talking with people from other cultures, from other languages, at least we can speak in English, right? That's one thing
Mm,
which will easily, develop your language in that sort. So that
mm,
is one. Then you have to know, what you have to know is there will be a lot of ground to cover in English language. So that can't be done in 1 or 2 months. So
mm,
that there should be a learning curve for this. So the one thing is you have to learn, you have to, inculcate a love for this language. It's like you can watch English films, English series, and the fact is it will take a lot of time to improve your language, because you may have a stage where you won't understand anything without the subtitles. Then you would be having a stage where you won't understand their accents. So this has to take some time, and once that sets in, that feeling of familiarity with English sets in, then I think English won't be much of a trouble for them, because as I say, English is not that difficult actually.
mm.
And I wouldn't say you have to go to mundane things like reading newspapers or books for that. I'm not sure if calling reading books as is a mundane thing is correct, but uh, people would, I think people would find watching movies and series much more easier than
Mm.
newspapers and books. So that's one thing. Then what you have to do is include your, you have to reduce your usage of your mother tongue and start using more of English in your normal conversations, at least with people of your fraternity, like your peers in this exam. So that would help you a lot. Then you can express your ideas in English. When you're
Mm,
trying to express something in FB, why don't you try to do it in English? That would be much better. Like
mm.
if you're trying to do it in regional languages, your reach will be much more lesser, much lesser compared to the reach you get when you try to post something in English. So this way, that's one thing. That's one way to improve your language as well. So there are a lot of things actually, but I'm not sure if this will work with new
Right.
aspirants,
Mm,
uh,
mm.
But the thing is, these were the things which I used, and I
Mm.
thought these things would have helped a lot of my friends as well. Like when they were preparing with me, these are just a few small things which we used to do.
Right. Ashish, any specific books that you use for grammar and vocabulary?
Yeah, I used MB Publications, Ajay
Okay.
Kumar Singh, authored by Ajay Kumar Singh. Uh,
Mm.
that was actually a compilation of previous year questions, and they had good solutions as well. But the fact is, in English, you can never expect a foolproof guide. Like
Mm.
you might find errors in every book which you refer to. So this was the only book actually which I referred, and yeah, there was S.P. Bakshi as well,
Mm.
book for building up of English. That is one of the books which would actually help people who are trying to build the language skills. And
Mm.
the truth is, I actually used it only for vocabulary, because that was very famous for the words. And most of the other work was done from MB Publications.
All right. Now moving to the next section, maths, Ashish, right?
Yeah.
What was your strategy for maths, right? So, what books you referred? Being from engineering background, how good you were at maths? Naturally, people are good at maths. Those who go to engineering. So, how did that background help you? But coming to this maths, if we talk about SSC math, right? You may have
Mhm.
certain advantage because of your CAT preparation or banking preparation somewhere. So, what
Mhm.
challenges you faced, and what you were very familiar with already? What books you used, your strategy for practice, and everything else about maths.
Mhm. So what you said that engineering students have an advantage over other people in preparation for maths. So the thing is, it doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily have to be an engineering graduate to have an advantage in maths. The thing is, if you have a passion for maths in 11th, 12th, or in the high school classes, you'll easily benefit from it if you're preparing for such exams. The fact is, we chose engineering because we were good at maths, but it's not the other way around. Some people mistake it like if you're an engineering graduate, you should be good at maths. It's the other way
Yeah.
around. If you are good at maths, you can have commerce as well. You can opt commerce as well. But some of the people who are running along with the flow of the at that time chose engineering instead of that. And once you're getting into engineering, then only we will be assessing what exactly engineering is. So some people won't exactly like that. Some people will not fare in that game actually. So the thing is, it doesn't have much to do with your maths preparation or anything. Engineering graduates having an advantage over others in maths is just a myth. And in with regard to my preparation for maths, the only thing is, I already had a bit of practice for the CAT preparation and bank exams, but max level at that for those exams were quite high. The exam questions which I used to practice for those exams, the questions were quite difficult, had very complex solutions, and you had to. There wasn't much difference in the topics, the overall topics, but the level was much easier when it came to SSC. So the only thing which mattered was the number of questions you would do in a specific span of time. That was the only thing which was a challenge in SSC. So what you had to do is you had to make sure that most of the work was done before you reach the exam hall. I actually learned about you during our CGL 2017 mains exam. You know the fiasco around it, right? There was a cancellation of exam. We were actually of the 21st February shift. So there was a cancellation of exam. And after that 2 weeks, that was the time which I came to know about you and your substitutions and your tricks. But the fact is, I was actually set with my methods and I tried a few of yours. It was actually far more easier, but I couldn't, fathom the strength to use your methods in the exam hall because I had a very small window, like just less than weeks, to learn your methods and do it. So I thought I'll just leave your methods and stay with my methods. So that's one thing. If you are not very confident about your methods, then that could cause a lot of trouble for you in the exam. So once it is fixed, it is fixed. You have to move on with it, and we should trust our skill set and our confidence. So that was one thing. Then the books which I followed, it's like very easy. The Kiran Prakashan's previous year compilations was there. Then I had actually asked my friends to do the same questions, same set of questions again and again, so as to lessen our burden on the exam hall. So that was one thing which we did. We used to do around 100 to 150 questions every day, and that was done in a period of 3 months before Tier 1, and once Tier 1 was done with, we again did the same thing again during Tier 2 preparation. So we at least did twice. The same questions were done at least twice, and some of the difficult questions were done many times actually. Like some of the practice sessions went on for a lot of time, and we used to solve the same question in different methods to know whether there is any easier way out. So we always had a bit of research going on about the questions, and that is one thing. Once you're done with, once you find the answer, just don't be content with it. You have to know that you have to be sure that there is no better way of doing it. So we have to do a little bit of research. So that's where teachers like yourself and a lot of online classes come in. We have a lot of sources to cover. So we will be going through them, and once we we are very sure of the methods, we will note them down, and we'll be following them from then on. So that was how we used to practice max. And to be honest, even though max was one of my favorite subjects and one of my strongholds, it was not that I didn't have much of practice in it, because in 2016 CGL, my score was around 148, if I'm correct. And 148 in CGL 2016 is not much of a score, because there are 2 or 3 people getting 200 out of 200. So that was a very mediocre score for a max background student. So what I did was what was wrong with my preparation was that there was no practice. There was zero practice 2016. So that was something which I had to remedy. Like, I had to put in a lot of effort and a lot of hours as well. So at the time given for max was at par with GK. Though I had only 4 months to prepare, I had given around 5 or 6 hours for GK, and I would give 5 or 6 hours for max as well every day. So I'll be attending classes in the morning, and I'll be having 3 hour session of practice in the evening. So this was the way I learned max. There is no way you can forego max practice. Practice if you want to succeed in CGL exam.
Right. So, Ashish, I really liked your point of view, and the point which I want to emphasize to the viewers is that you told that, okay, you saw some of the videos of mine, but you liked it, but you did not implement it because exam was very near. And that's a very true fact, because until you have mastery over something, right, you cannot use that in exam. It may look fancy, but it may not work. So that's why I always keep on saying to the students, until something becomes part of your skill set, right? I say it is a gunpoint situation, and exam is a gunpoint situation, right? What you can do at the gunpoint, the same thing you will do in the exam, right? So if you have not mastered anything, you cannot use it. So practice as much as you can, so that you are familiar with every method. That's very important. That's a really nice point you made, because just before the exam, people go for some kind of awesome tricks that will help them in clearing the exam. That never happens actually, right?
Never happens.
You have to learn it much before you go to actual exam. That's really nice point. Ashish, did you do anything special about calculation? Because nowadays what is happening, SSC exam is no more the exam that it used to be 10 years ago. Highly competitive, scores too high. So did you try something for, okay, shall I improve my calculation also a bit? Or you were satisfied with the existing speed?
No, not at all. The fact is, the first lessons we have in a coaching session is about speed max. It's like we learn a lot of tricks regarding multiplication of 4-digit number to 2-digit number. Then we have divisions, then we have fractions, then we have percentages. Like, this is the sort of work which we start with. So speed max is actually the fundamental thing which every exam related to max, has always, that is the most important thing, one of the most important things in max related exams. So the fact is, you'll have to be very thorough with all the tricks, all the shortcuts in speed max, even when you are not, even when there's a long gap between the exams, because once you lose touch of it, then the calculation speed will take a hit. So you have to be very thorough. We have to be very fast when you're calculating stuff through your tricks. So calculation of the tricks used in calculation was one major thing which I used to practice with my friends. And there was a tutor, like a teacher, who used to sing song. Like, he would be singing songs about the decimal places of 1/7 or 1/30. So these are things which we used to memorize and those things stayed by heart. These teachers will be reciting those decimal places like a song, and that will be staying forever in our heart. So these are things which we used to put in a lot of effort as well. So calculation of max is one of the most important things, other than the shortcuts, other than the basics, other than whatever you learn in max. Calculation speed is very important now.
Right. So Ashish, again, a very basic question, because when it is about speed maths, right?
Mhm.
There should be some limit, right? Because what happens in speed maths, name of the speed math, right? Many people try to sell Vedic mathematics. Vedic
Mhm.
mathematics is a really wonderful thing, right? But you cannot
Yes,
remember all
yes.
the tricks, right?
Mhm.
So what I want to know from you is that is when aspirant comes out, he's fresh, right?
Mhm.
I talk about any aspirant is, anyone can mold that particular student in one or other way.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
there are a lot of guidance and a lot of misguidance also, right?
True.
So I've
True.
seen, people learning trying to learn entire Vedic maths in the name of speed maths, right? Can you
Mhm.
specify a bit when it is about calculation tricks, or also what sort of, like,
Mm.
if you remember the fraction, till what number fraction you knew, some squares,
Okay.
some cubes, or whatever. Can you
Yes.
specify
Yes.
a bit so that the aspirants know, okay, this is what I need to do?
Mm. That's where actually the importance of previous year questions come into. Like some of the tutors will not be aware at all about the difference between bank exams or insurance exams and CGL exams. So that's one thing which where your preparation might go up absurd actually, because you will be in bank exams, in CAD exams, in insurance exams and all. You will need to have a lot more coverage in the field of speed maths. Like you may have to go for much higher cubes, much higher squares. Then you should have a lot of better, much better understanding in about the fractions, maybe even up to 1/20. So this kind of calculations come into such exams, for such exams. But in SSC, it's not that difficult because you the most of the areas where you use calculation techniques will be in DI, and then you may have a bit of calculation in mensuration and some of the difficult advanced questions. So it's not very difficult when it comes to SSC because you need not cover a lot of things, and if you keep on covering a lot of things, you will probably feel a bit. You may be feeling that you are not doing enough. You may not be getting into you not be your confidence may not be much good when you're going for high level max, high level speed max. So the thing is, that's where a good mentor comes in. The people who have good support, have good experience in different types of exams, they will be able to differentiate the exact point, the demarcate up to what point you have to have an idea about speed max in SSC exams and bank exams. So there is not much point in going much deeper than what is required because you're after all wasting the time which you don't have. So you probably have to stop at some point, and when you're stopping at that point, you just have to be confident that you'll be able to catch up, even if something comes out of it. Something out of it comes for the exam. So it's like the final thing which you need is your confidence. Once you have a lot of speed, you just have to improvise in the exam. If there's a need, you just have to improvise in the exam hall and make sure that you don't come short. That's it.
Right. Ashish, another question is that one part is good preparation,
Mm-hmm.
but the other part is also equally important, which matters the most is good execution, right? Because
Yeah.
there are many aspirants who are so greatly prepared, but they falter in the exam and they're not able to score.
Mm-hmm.
Being such a high scorer in the exam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a very micro plan ready that that's how I'm going to approach the exam? This is the order of the question. That much time I will spend in this section, that section. So did you do some micro planning, or you just go random and did the paper and went out well?
Yeah, there was always a micro plan. Like unless that's in place, there will be a bit of trouble in the exam hall because you may panic. That's one thing which always throws off students from their performance. So there will be always a micro plan. It's not like you have to write it down or anything. That comes in, you get that plan once you do a lot of mock exams. So you will be trying a lot of mock exams. Once you feel that this is not working out, you will be changing that up, and you'll be going with some other order. For example, if you are going for a prelims exam, so you have 4 portions, and the order of attending those portions might be important for you. It might not be the same thing which should be followed by others, but for you there would be a particular order which would make a difference. So that's something which you come to understand once you do a lot of mock exams. So you'll be first starting with reasoning, then you may be moving on to GK, then you may be moving on to Max and then English. So there will be some problems with that. So you'll be changing up the order and then you'll be trying out that. And the same thing, if the same thing happens, then it's fine. Like if you don't have any particular strength or weakness, then the same thing probably will happen. You will be having a lot of time left at the end. You may have very less time left at the end. So it all depends on your preparation as well. But what happens is there will be always a micro plan, but you don't have to note it down or anything. It just comes to you naturally. You have to try out a lot of options. Just make sure that you are open to options. That's one thing. So see, the thing is, when we were preparing for Max using shortcuts and tricks in second guessing yourself when you are in the exam hall, what you have to do is you have to be very thorough. You have to be very confident that this is the best thing which I can do. This is the best method I can do. So that's one thing. And other than that, what counts is your exam composure, the composure at the moment of writing the exam. For that, I can't comment much about that, because the fact is, when I was writing in 2016, there was no hope of clearing the exam because I was not preparing for the exam, so I had nothing to lose. So that is one mindset where you don't have much pressure. When you don't have nothing much to lose, then you'll be very free in the exam hall. That's one approach. In 2017 CGL, I was feeling that I was very prepared. By the time I was writing the Tier 1 exam, I was feeling that I was very prepared. And once I got a good score in 2017 CGL Tier 1, my confidence was very high. So in the exam hall for when I was writing Tier 1, Tier 2 English and Maths, though there were many hiccups, I was always confident that I would end up in a good grade pay in the final job list. So this is somewhere someone with a medium level of preparation will always have issues with his exam composure. Once you have, either you have to be very prepared or you shouldn't have anything to lose. That's what happens actually. So if you're very prepared, then there's no issue with the exam composure. You just have to be confident that that's the best. You just go on with it. That's it.
Right. So Ashish, your order of attempt in prelims exam, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. It was like what I said already. Like it was first was reasoning. Don't tell me what basis I went into that. It was just that most of the exams were held in that particular order. First was reasoning, second was GK, third was Maths, and final was English. The only positive which I used to find out from this was that I didn't have to do reasoning or Maths at the end. At the end, if you have reasoning or Maths, it could push you in a bit of pressure, because Maths and reasoning needs a bit of clear mind. English and GK doesn't call for that. So it's almost like if you have issues with reasoning or Maths, never keep it for the end. It's always better to do it the first or in the middle. I used to do reasoning in the beginning and then GK, then Maths, and then English.
So approximately how much time did you spend on each section, Ashish?
In reasoning, what I used to do is like 15 minutes, around 15 minutes for the 25 questions. And I use sometimes my buffer was actually 20 minutes. There was almost a buffer of 5 minutes. So I could have spent 20 minutes if it's a difficult shit, and if it's an easy one, I'll stop it at 15 minutes. That's what I used to do. Then GK would be done within 6 or 7 minutes. Usually 6 minutes. If it's difficult or some economics questions which need, or physics questions which need some calculation, it might go on to 8 minutes. So 6 to 8 minutes, you would say. Then Maths, I would be giving 25 minutes at least, because that's where usually most of my time would be spent in the prelims exam. And English would be done within 10 to 12 minutes.
Right. So Ashish, one more question. In how much question did you attempt in prelims?
It was 98, I believe.
98. Wonderful. Right. So final marks, how much marks did you got?
185.5.
185.5, right? So can you remember and tell us the individual section marks? Sectional marks?
185.5 was like reasoning was 48. I told you one question, there was no way I could do it. So that question was left alone. Then Maths, GK was 42.5. Then Max and English were 47.5 each.
Great, great. So once you got such a high mark in prelims, Ashish, right? Two things happen. One, you get a lot of confidence. Second, the bit of pressure also, right? That now I have to do well in mains, right? So what happened with you?
No pressure at all. No pressure at all actually after tier one, because you know, pressure comes to you if you rely on luck a lot. If you are relying on your own effort, it doesn't create much of pressure. Because I was not very, you could have you. If you know my friend Tony, I was actually sharing a hostel room with him, and he always complained that I never prepared enough during mains, and I got good scores because I was sleeping half of my time. I was very relaxed. My mind was very easygoing at that point. The fact is, the difficult portions were done with. Like GK was my arch enemy, you could say that. So that was done with, and English and Maths was almost like an easy, no, not an easy. It's just like these were my favorite things when I talk about SSC. So these were not something which you would call uh, difficult to, you know, live with. These are actually subjects which I found easier to prepare, and it wasn't much of a difficult thing after tier one, getting a score of 185.5 in tier one. It was not at all pressure situation. It was very easy.
Right. So, Ashish, any specific changes that you made after tier one in your preparation? That okay, it's tier two now, maths and English only, 100 question of math, 200 questions of English. So, did you change any specific strategy in preparation, or you went ahead with your actual plan of practicing more and more?
No, not much change. The only thing what that changed was the number of hours which I put in. The number of hours came down to 6 hours from 11 hours. That was a major change actually.
Okay. Usually people increase you, but you decreased it, right?
That's the thing actually. That's not like I was having a lot of peace of mind. That's the truth. And in the exam context, there are a lot of revision classes going on in the coaching center. So I would attend that, or I will be leading that. And once that was done with, I would be, you know, coming to my hostel, coming back to my hostel. Then I usually didn't do much homework when I was in my hostel. That was the fact. I did not want to, say that I had put in a lot of effort during tier two. The truth is, I didn't do much during tier two preparation. But uh, the fact is, I had made a lot of effort during tier one preparation, and that actually helped me to stay in track in tier two, because the only thing which I had to do is just to continue the momentum, whatever we did in the classes for the maths and English, just had to repeat it. So I was just revising the same questions again and again. I was just preparing, in the same context, but in a very peaceful manner. I wasn't rushed. I wasn't pressured. Just had to make sure that I, spend enough time to stay in touch with the subjects. That's it.
Right. So, Ashish, any major hiccups apart from that you did or gave the re-exam also to 9th of March, right? What do you think? Did that re-exam helped you in any way? Because giving exam on 21st, having a better idea of the pattern because you actually saw the paper, and giving that exam once again on 9th of March, though with a different paper, did it help you somewhere in the math section that by seeing the trend and the kind of paper and in actual experience on 21st, you got some 15 days to prepare separately for that?
Mm-hmm. The fact is, it never helped me. The delay didn't help me actually. It may have helped a lot of people, because I know a few people it has helped immensely. But during my 21st shift, my actual score was 178.5. Though I had never told anyone about this, I had actually collected the grants paper and I had gone through it. And the score was 178.5, and for the second shift, for the re-exam, it was 171.5. So it never helped me, but the fact is, it didn't make my difficult either, because it would have made my difficult, because had been a more difficult paper. Had it been like one of the previous shifts where questions were very difficult, then it would have been a different story altogether. I would not be even interviewed by you in that case. So there is always a probability of getting a difficult paper, but the fact is the difficulty, the level of questions were kept at the same level. We were happy that at least we could get the same level of questions. Because had it been more difficult, it would have been a different story altogether.
Right. And Ashish, any specific preparation for tier 3?
Actually, there was one area where I faltered a bit because I had a good, decent score, like 546.5, I believe, out of 600. So, and there is very less prospect of losing out from the toppers list if you are not preparing much for tier 3. There is very less probability of that because if you have good communication skills, if you have good writing skills, you can get an average score like from 60s to 70s. That's an average score that is not that difficult to get unless you end up with a very strict evaluator. If you are unlucky, you will be ending up with a very strict evaluator, and he will be going through all the nuances, and he will be very critical about your paper, and then you might end up with a low score. So if that's not the case, then it's not that difficult to get an average score in tier 3. And the topic, even the topic was very much expected, so it was not that difficult. And I didn't prepare much. The fact is, I just went through some of the topics. I read a lot, but there was not much of writing essays or anything. I would have written around 10 essays during that period. That's it. The fact is, there was not much focus on that.
So, what was the score in tier 3, Ashish?
66 out of 100.
66. And what was your final total score?
612.5.
612.5. So, Ashish, now the next question I have is you are now ranked 2. So, definitely I would like to know something about the importance of mock tests in preparation, because I have seen many people are able to clear the exam without giving any mocks. Then there are many who have given so many mocks. I was interviewing rank 1 Kaushik. He gave around 150 mocks. For prelims, he was telling about more than 200 mocks, right? That was really interesting. So I just want to know what was your mock taking strategy and what you would recommend to the new aspirants, how many mocks they should give, because they don't know actually, they are confused. What is a good number of mocks they should take? So I just want to ask you that question, that what your mock taking strategy, and when a aspirant should start giving mocks, and what is the importance of mocks?
Okay. This differs from person to person because no one can exactly ascertain at what point of time one is supposed to start mocks. But in my opinion, you should never start mocks when you are underprepared because it it affects your confidence. So I just made something sure that unless I'm at least reaching 75% of my preparation, I will not write any mocks. So I started it from June, at least from beginning of June, I started writing mocks. So I just made sure that I was okay with the topics which were asked in the mock. There was no day in which I scored below 120, I guess. Going below 120 out of 200 will definitely hamper your confidence, will definitely affect your morale. So you have to make sure that your scores never go below 120.
Right. So if I ask approximately number of mocks Ashish that you gave in tier 1, what would be that number?
It would be around 50, not more than that.
50. And for tier 2, for each subject, for maths, how many mocks you appeared?
For tier 2, what I solely depended was, not solely, mainly depended was KD, campus MOOCs, and Paragon mocks. There were quite difficult questions in those mocks, a lot of difficult questions in those mocks. The number would be around 20 to 25 in KD. Yeah, not 25, maybe 30 mocks in altogether for maths, right, and the 30 mocks in altogether for English. That's it.
All right. Right. Ashish, another thing is that why did you choose income tax inspector? That's another question I want to ask. What were your top 3 choices and the reason for selecting income tax inspector?
In my memory, I had given one was the top post option was income tax inspector. Second one was AAO, and I think third one could have been ME. I'm done. I think I had only made two or three choices because there was not much point in going beyond that. But I was very sure that I would be getting ITA because the ranks would be around top 50. So we were very sure of that during that document verification. So there was no point in going beyond that. Because the fact is, my main priority was first thing getting allotted, getting posted somewhere near my hometown. So the number of options were very limited because first thing was some of the options were like excise, and this one was income tax. So in every district headquarters, there will be one office for the same for both these departments. But in excise, there was a bit of physical test involved. So since I had a bit of injury, I thought I would just forego that and would go with income tax inspector. And the fact that I worked in the department for almost 2 years before joining as income tax inspector also boosted my affinity towards this post.
Okay, understood. So, briefly, if I ask you, because you're working as tax assistant since 2 years, Ashish, briefly, can you tell us a bit about the difference in the roles? Because through same exam, right, you go as a tax assistant, with the same exam you go as income tax inspector. So, in hierarchy, how much difference is there, right? So, is the first promotion after a tax assistant becomes income tax inspector, or there are more layers?
No, there are actually 2 layers. I mean, in between there's one more layer, senior tax assistant. But this all depends on the cadre restructuring. Some people are saying that there might be a cadre restructuring coming in the next few years. We are never sure of that. So as per the present sanctions cadre, it's like after tax assistant, there will be a senior tax assistant, and then comes inspector. So there's a bit of difference in the profile, like income tax inspector would have more duties allotted to him. But the fact is, in my experience, a lot of the works will be shared between the team. Like there would be no specific demarcation between the duties of inspector and the tax assistant. A lot of work will be shared. As after all, we are working as a team under an officer. So it's actually important that in order to cover all the duties, we have to share the workload. There's not much. We can't say that this doesn't come under our charter of duties. This doesn't come under our responsibility. There's no option of that. We have to be we have to be willing to work as a team. We have to be willing to share our workload. Fortunately, I have had a good, a good officer and a good inspector to reel me into this department.
That's wonderful. So, Ashish, if I ask you in general that how much time any tax assistant usually takes to become inspector through the promotion policy that is in place, how much time actually a tax assistant takes to become income tax inspector in the current scenario, roughly?
Depends on the vacancies in the zone. In my zone, it usually takes around 10 years, around 3 years for senior TA, and another 7 years for inspector promotion. This happens only if you're clearing all the departmental exams in the correct time. So if you're if you fail in the exams, maybe, and you're losing your seniority, then that becomes an issue. Like the people in your junior batch might be getting better promotions, and you may be stuck with senior TA or TA. So if you're clearing all the departmental exams in the right time, then you'll be going on with these promotions in the right time, like around 10 years for inspector. But there are some zones which even get inspector promotions in 4 years or 5 years. This is actually very rare, but it happens in some zones. Like there was a case in Bangalore zone, around 3 years were only taken for the promotion from senior TA. From TA to inspector.
Oh, that's wonderful, right? So it depends on some luck factor and zone also, right?
Yeah, luck, a lot of vacancies and your material as well. It's not easy to clear the department exam. So you have to put in a bit of effort as well.
Right. Ashish, now one thing I want to congratulate for your wedding, right? I got to know from your Facebook profile that you have got married recently. So wish you all
Thank
a
you.
very wonderful life, right?
Thank you.
Uh, Last question, Ashish. Any message to the aspirant, right, who are dreaming, but and this year is more significant because this year again the delay is there because of COVID,
Mm.
though not due
Yes,
to
yes.
court, right? But due to COVID, the delay is happening, and the students are quite confused that what will happen next. So
Mhm.
I think 2017 aspirants are best to answer it. What they should do in this moment. Plus, SSC has now become highly competitive exam, right? So a lot of
Yes.
dreams are made every year, while a lot are shattered every year, right? So just share something for the aspirants so that they feel motivated and they have the attitude, I can do it like that.
Mhm. No, the only thing is, what I have to say is, just whatever be the case, whatever be the scenario, if you lose confidence in yourself, it's very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to come out of that. So don't be very sure of yourself. Don't be very overconfident, but be sure that if the skill set required for this exam is with you, you will clear the exam. You just make sure that you improve your skill set over days, uh, and just don't care about anything else. Like don't care about your about the negative mindset of the people around you. If that's the case, if there is a lot of negativity, you know, in your bubble, just get out of the bubble. Just get out of that surrounding. Just try to stay positive and find out friends who will push you into that kind of positivity. If it's friends or if it's mentor, just find out whoever helps you in that sort, in that direction. And once that is done with, once the negativity is done with, you can easily find that this exam is uh, not that challenging for you. Only thing is, you have to find, you have to make sure that the skill set which you possess is a correct one. Uh, because this is not everyone's cup of tea. There are a lot of people saying that everyone can clear SSC CGL, everyone can clear bank exam if they have the right mindset. I'm not sure of that. The only thing is you have to make sure that you attain that kind of a skill set and then go ahead with it. So if you're feeling that this is not your cup of tea, just try out of time or 2 times and make sure that uh, you can improve your skill set. If you can improve your skill set, then nothing else matters. If you can match the skill set required with what you have, then nothing else matters. What you have to do is just practice, practice, practice. And and the fact is, this is always an option for redemption. Like whatever you did in the past doesn't matter anymore. Once you get through this and you get a good government job, you are always a star. You never have to think about what happened in the past, what may happen in the future. There's no presence about that. Just make sure that your preparation fits with this profile, with this exam, and go ahead with it with your full commitment. And other than that, you just make sure that you don't get overwhelmed by the the competition, because what matters is not the competition. What matters is not your peer performance. What matters is your performance. You what you have to have that kind of a game. You have to bring that kind of a game to the table, and that kind of a challenge to your friends, and make sure that your friends can never have an upper hand on you in terms of mental aggression and mental composure, because that is something which many people lack in. If you lack in mental composure or mental aggression, that might throw you off the race. So just make sure that you have everything intellectual with you, everything mental, everything, uh, and whatever you have learned in your phase of preparation, make sure that never leaves you. Once it comes into your brain, never let it out. You, the thing is, I have forgotten half of my stuff, half of the general awareness stuff, which I learned during my preparation in the 4 months. You can get rid of that in the next hour of the once the exam is over. The next hour, 1 hour, you can get rid of all that. You can free up your mind. You can free up your brain. You can free up your memory. That all doesn't matter. But when you're preparing, you just make sure that whatever comes into your mind, whatever you have crammed, never comes out without your permission. Never goes out with your permission. You have to just make sure of that. And yeah, that's it. That's it. Good luck for all the aspirants. Best of wishes.
Right. Thank you, Ashish, once again for coming to the show and sharing insights in a great and detailed manner that will surely help every aspirant for sure in realizing their dreams. Thank you so much, Ashish.